Be part of a worldwide community of over 100,000 people and enjoy exclusive benefits while protecting the activities we love. RYA membership, your route to expert advice. Become a member today. You're listening to the RYA 150 podcast, hosted by record-breaking British yachtswoman Dee Caffari, marking 150 years of sailing heritage and future inspiration.
Well, a few years ago, probably more than I declare, I remember being a school teacher, having no idea what the sailing industry could offer. And back in 2000, when I did that career change, it opened up doors that I never even knew existed. Today, we're very much focusing on what careers we can have in the sailing industry and just how diverse they can be. And I've got two people that have not only lived it, but they now help other people try and bridge into this new sailing career pathway. And it's a pleasure to welcome Gemma Holber and Liberty Nogueira. They're here giving their experience and sharing their top tips as well. Now, Gemma, just to start with you, how did you get into your career? Because you kind of worked your way through and you've come out the other side.
Yeah. So I started within the yachting industry when I was 18. I don't necessarily recommend that every 18-year-old join. I guess it's all person dependent, but I was at university. I was doing event management and hospitality. I think just being a planner, organizing is very much in my blood. And one of my colleagues said, "You are young, you have everything in front of you. Go and do this." And she had just left after 7 years and she was looking to become more land-based. So I wrote my final exam and I flew to Florida the next day, and within a week I had my SCCW and that was 2011. So some time ago now.
So when you first went out, did you kind of know what the job entailed or what job you wanted, or did you just randomly go to a marina and go, "Hi"?
Yeah, I had no idea. And I mean, Instagram wasn't even around then, so it makes me feel a little old, but it was such a different space to now. I think now there's so much information available at your fingertips. Back then, that just wasn't the case. So it was only through a friend that we learned about an SCCW. I then worked with recruitment agents, but after my SCCW, I went home because I couldn't look for work in the US either. So I did my SCCW and then went back to Canada and then secured a role from Canada and then flew back to the States. So quite a bit of back and forth, but I had no idea. At that point in time, I had never really ironed before, which is like a key component of being a junior stewardess. All these things, I just had to fake it till I made it a little bit at the beginning there. But yeah, I truly, looking back now, I do shake my head at myself because my goodness, if only I knew how much learning I had to do when I first started. But yeah, it was, I think I just had the guts of a young, fearless 18-year-old that was ready to just see the world and rock and roll and just follow whatever was going to happen in front of me.
Well, I love the honesty, and we're definitely going to dig into that. Now, Liberty Nogueira, you had a slightly different entry into the sailing industry because you actually left a secure 9-to-5 job. Is that right?
I did, yes. So I started a little bit later in life. I started when I was 26. So I did what I was supposed to do. I went to uni, then went to London, joined the rat race. And then at 26, I thought to myself, I cannot do this for the rest of my life. I'm not made to sit at a desk. So I had a friend whose sister, well, she's also my friend, but she was telling me about yachting. She was a chef. And I just thought, you know what, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. So I did my STCW whilst I was still working my corporate job. And then I didn't start at the perfect time. So I started it in September, which isn't ideal. But yeah, I just did my courses, did my powerboat in Antibes while I was looking for a job, and then got some day work, luckily. But then I didn't get a job. I didn't have a job for 6 weeks. And I was very close to giving up until I had basically harassed this one friend of a friend who was a chief officer. And I used to work in recruitment, so I kind of, when people say no to me, I don't really, it kind of doesn't really faze me. I'm like, what can I get out of this, instead of, being sad or upset. So I'd message him every Friday and be like, hey, so I've had these interviews, haven't had any luck. And then finally, he had a friend who had an opening for a temp deck position for 4 months, and that was my first kind of proper job that I landed. But yeah, it wasn't easy, but we got there in the end.
That's really impressive. The fact that, and I love the fact that you're in recruitment, so you actually know what all the brush offs are like because you've been there, the other side.
Yeah, it wasn't. I mean, I think working in recruitment is actually a really good skill to have, just generally, or sales. I also worked in business to business sales, so it's such a good skill to have generally in life, because it helps you overcome obstacles and get around them. So no, that was really helpful. It's actually helpful in what I'm doing now on the land-based side of stuff as well.
Yeah, so actually both of you have kind of gone through the industry and are now come out and you're actually helping others. So, Gemma, tell me what you actually do in your day-to-day now, just so that we know where you've got to.
Yeah, sure. So I left the industry about 5 years ago now. And I now have two businesses that I run and oversee. So one is a recruitment company. So as what Liberty was saying, I too am very much learning that no doesn't exist anymore. It's fine. So I have a recruitment company where we place crew in all departments and also in private estates, with it just being the same clientele. We've branched out to that. And then the other side, which is definitely more my passion project. We are an accredited training school for interior stewardesses. So any level of experience, from those looking to get started all the way to more senior management, chief stew roles. We do training for all of that. Typically, all of our courses are accredited through IAMI and through Guest. And that's what we do on the training and recruitment side.
And it's funny because you mentioned social media and the way you can actually see, and Liberty, you've taken that to another step. You're helping people get in the industry, but actually you're influencing as well.
Yeah, so if I'm honest, it kind of happened not by accident, but it wasn't my goal in my yachting career, if I'm honest. It kind of developed. So yachting took me to some incredible places. My final year of yachting, we pretty much circumnavigated and did Asia in the summer, Antarctica in the winter, which was insane. Never thought I'd go to Antarctica. It was incredible. But as I was going to all these amazing places, I just thought, I'm going to start documenting it, because at that time, Below Deck, the TV show, wasn't really a thing. So people didn't know about this world of yachting and people that work on super yachts. So I was documenting on Instagram and TikTok, and I used to get a lot of messages that would ask me, how can I get into this? Can you tell me more about it? And I'm always be happy to help people. And then I was chatting to my husband about it, and he just said, look, why don't you help people, but also take it to the next level and see if you can make it into a company. So I left yachting last year. So I've been creating On Deck in the meantime, and we're not fully launched yet. We're almost there. I've made some free content, which is essentially like a super yacht reality check that hopefully will be launched by the time this goes out. But yeah, it's essentially helping aspiring deckhands get on deck. And I think a big problem that I'm sure Gemma can also discuss this in a bit more detail, I think, because the industry is growing so fast, the amount of crew is also growing very quickly. So I think people just rush to get a job, whereas a lot of it is actually teaching aspiring crew what a good boat looks like, what doesn't look like, because if they just jump on the first boat, then it's not going to last. So
I'm loving the fact you said that, because I've heard some horror stories as well, which I'm going to dig into, because I'm sure you've heard or seen yourself. But I love the fact that you mentioned Below Deck. I think that's a lot of people's guilty pleasure. I've got to ask both of you now, does it actually help or hinder the industry? Give me your reactions.
Oh, it's so polarizing, isn't it? It's so challenging. I think I watch it, and my chief stew soul dies inside a little bit when I see some of the things that happen. But equally, there's been a few quite intense scenarios on board that has actually, I think, brought a light to some of the issues within the industry, and it's put it on more of a public platform, so you can't hide from it. So I think in that instance, it's good. I think people do have to remember it is built for entertainment, right? So when you are vetting these crew members from a recruitment point of view, when you are looking at what personality types are going to work really well for conducive work environment, what kind of leadership styles do these crew members need to thrive, that is like thrown out the window and like burnt in the trash, like and I think people need to remember that they're going to purposely put polarizing personality types, which is the polar opposite of what captains and management companies and HRDs are trying to do, because they want harmony. But that harmony is not good TV. So I don't know. I mean, for the entertainment, there's been a few times where I've seen like crew be late and the chiefs do handle it, and I was like, oh, that was actually really graceful. I probably would have been a bit more in like black and white of that's not acceptable. So there's been a few times, I guess, where I've learned little snippets, but it's not my fave. Not my
What
fave.
about you, Liberty? Can you relate to it, or do you like hang your head in shame?
I agree with everything that Gemma said. I think that it's been very helpful when you tell someone what you do as a job, that they actually, because before they'd go, oh, so you work on a cruise ship? And it's like, no, I don't work on a cruise ship. A little bit smaller, a little bit glamorous. But so that's helpful in that respect. But yeah, they just add a little sprinkle of magic to make it good TV. So it is over dramatized. And it's actually not a very realistic idea of what a charter looks like, because the guests coming on, they're only on for 2, 3, 4 days, and they have a heavily discounted rate. So the caliber of guests that you're getting is nowhere near the caliber of guests that you're working for on charter or for a private. And the guests that you are working for, they don't want to be seen. They just want to do their own thing. Most of them, they're just completely different people. So that's also a big difference, I think. But yeah, I try not to watch it too much. I've watched a few episodes, but it is a good, easy watch. So yeah.
Yeah, whether it helps or hinders the industry, we'll see. I think the art of discretion is something that you've both alluded to because of the nature of the people you work with and for. What's an average day like? Because I think, as you say, people get caught up in the glamorous world of you're in the sunshine, it's beautiful, you're on a boat, you've got all these toys to play with. But actually, it's not a 9 till 5, is it? It's a 24-hour clock ticking. So Gemma, what's the typical day of somebody that you would place, take a role of a stewardess or something?
Oh my gosh. I think it's important to note every single day is going to look so different. Even in the shipyard, every day is going to look so, so different. I think typically on charter, crew work very long hours, and it does depend on your owner. I've had owners before who were like the dream. At 8:30 in their cabin, we wouldn't see them till 7 a.m. Happy days. Late girl is wrapped up by 9:30. She'll start, I don't know, maybe I would always try and give the team as much rest as possible, because if everyone's well rested, they're happier, they're more productive. It doesn't always work with busy trips, but as long as everyone's getting minimum 8 hours is what you always aim for, but I always try to give 10. And then, so let's say you finished at 9, the night before, you might start at 7 the next day or 8 in the morning, and then you would get usually a 2-hour break. But with guests on, dependent on the size of the vessel, how many crew you have in your department, at least on the interior, you may just be doing laundry all day, every day for that trip. You may be solely in housekeeping, so doing back of house crew areas, plus then turn up, turn down, and guest areas and guest spaces on board. Or alternatively, you could be on service where you are more guest facing from, the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed. You've got that smile on your face. You're very guest interactive, everything from mixology, barista to silver service, if that's what they want to do, and anything in between. So there's a lot of different realms. And I think it's so important to note on board votes, dependent on your personality type, there is definitely a role, I think, for everybody. It's just being open to what that might look like. Everyone, I think, at least in the interior, assumes you're working up towards a front-facing guest role, because that's kind of how the hierarchy works sometimes is,
I was going to ask, have
yeah,
you described a progression?
yeah, you start typically back of house so that you learn your foundations of like laundry and then housekeeping, and then you work up to service. But some of the best stews I've worked with are not service stews. They are head of housekeeping, and they are so impeccably good at that. So that's something that I do love about the industry, is dependent on the boat that you join and the size that you join, there is going to be a role that will work for you. But yeah, it's every day is different. Off charter, you could luck out and just do, an 8 till 5. I had one boat, the boss didn't come in the winter. So we worked 8 till 4 from November 15th usually until April 1st. And that was awesome.
Or is it boring? Is that demoralizing because you're not doing anything and going anywhere?
No, I loved it because I get seasick. So I was like, great, like 5 months.
Hold on a minute. You're a stewardess working in the yachting industry that gets seasick.
I know. I don't know. It's like, I think it was just my delusion, because I just every year would be like, this is the year I will beat it. 10 years in, never did. So
There's hope for a lot of people then. And Liberty, I know I've asked you a really difficult question because a typical day just doesn't really exist. But if you were to describe it for the deckhands more, the on-deck crew, what their role is and whether that's a 24/7 thing.
Sure. So you don't have, I'd say, as many different aspects of the deck department like you do in interior, because, I mean, it depends what size of yacht that you work on. So my previous vessel was 55 meters, which I think is a really good size because you actually have exposure to lots of different aspects of the job. So let's say a typical day, you'd wake up, let's say 7 a.m. Or the first person would wake up at 6 a.m. The guests would probably wake up around 10. But anyway, so you've got 4 hours to get the boat ready. So you're wiping down all the decks, making
this
sure...
is the chamois technician role, right?
Yeah. Got to have your chamois wiping on point. But yeah, so you're just essentially making sure that everything that's been handed over from the night person has been done, double checking that around the tables are clean for when the guests come up. Our guests would normally have breakfast on bridge deck aft, so that would be the first deck that you wanted to have look amazing, and then you just work your way through the decks, get the tender ready, and then normally we'd be told about any guest activities. So you might have to then jump in the tender and go with another deckhand to drop the guest off ashore. If you were staying on the boat, you'd be getting up maybe some of the water toys ready, making sure that's set up. And operations, so like crane operations, launching the jet skis off of the bow. And then, yeah, you'd probably get a little bit of a break in the afternoon. And then in the evening, again, it's completely different to interior because in the evening's actually pretty chill for like deckhands, because normally the guests are having dinner on board or you'll just have to do a tender on shore. But I'd say that's a typical day. I think one thing that I do try and tell aspiring deckhands, and it's the same for interior or exterior, is that at the beginning, you essentially are a glorified cleaner and your job will be very monotonous. So when I was a deckhand, I was on nights in St. Bart's for, I think, a month. I was on nights, if I got up during the day, I did see the light, but I would be on my own, working night shifts. I had a list of jobs to do, and I did that for a month. So you have to have the mental capacity and drive to be able to do that, because if you don't, then, you're not going to get far. And unfortunately, when you join and you're the bottom as a junior, you do get the rubbish shifts and the rubbish jobs. So you have to be open to that and be able to do that with a smile on your face, because if you don't, that also doesn't go down well.
So the reality of monotony, boredom, repetitive, you could not see the light, you're really selling this to me. So what's the really good thing about
working
in the industry?
Really
both
negative.
of you. I mean, imagine doing laundry all day. I stress when I have to do laundry at home. What are the good things about the career in the industry? Like, Gemma, what was the thing that really sold it to you, that you were like, oh yeah, and I want everyone else to go and have this opportunity too?
I think for me, I very much, everything I do, my like one of my core values is like acts of service. So if you are someone who thrives in an environment of service, of this is like an amazing career, I think, because you are consistently looking at ways that you can elevate your offering to others. And for me, I get such a rush from that. I love that. I love being able to consistently push the bar and really look at, okay, well, what have we done before? How can we make that 3 times better every single time these guests come on board? It's a privilege, I feel anyways, to be a part of play a really tiny role in perhaps making like being that lifelong memory that these guests have when they come on board and making this just the most magical week of their life. That is very cool to be a part of that. And I know it may sound cliche, but for me, the sisterhood of it within my interior team are some of my best friends from the past, gosh, it's been 15 years now within the industry. And that's not something that you can replace. As an adult, it's a weird stat, but you have to spend, I think it's 40 to 60 hours with someone as an adult to really build the foundations of a friendship. But on board, you get that within like the first few days that they're on board because you live together, you work together, so you build these relationships really quickly. So when you are doing these boring tasks, such as laundry, you've got this team around you that are so encouraging. We've all been there, and you have to just make it fun and be mentally resilient, I think, as well. With laundry, look at it as, I'm going to time myself. How quick can I get XYZ done? I'm going to play some nice music in the background, and I'm just going to get my steps in, and it's going to be awesome. Or with housekeeping, how can we whip this cabin around as quick as possible, and then we can go down and have a tea break? It is about a mindset for sure. If you go into it of, I'm better than this work, or, I'm bored, then it's not probably a career for you. I think
I'm sure it shows.
Massively. And it affects your whole team because you are living together, you're working together, you're literally breathing the same air. So I think one bad attitude can affect a lot. So it's hard. It's like that balance of being like toxic positivity where you are like happy all the time and you aren't able to like share how you're really feeling versus just having a good mindset of, oh, today's a tough day, but we're going to get through it because I've got this team and then I'm going to deal with it after work or whatever the case may be. So I think it is finding that balance as well. Sorry.
I think that's really powerful and so positive as well. Liberty, what's your kind of big sellout? That's your, like, this is what makes it all worth it. A month on nights in St. Bart's. I mean, not seeing daylight. What sold it to you? What was the good thing?
The good things definitely do outweigh the bad things, by the way. I realised I sounded very negative in those 2 things that I said.
Honest, I'd call it.
Yeah. But no, I'd say I agree with Gemma completely. It is 100% the people because, I mean, I'd say on my previous vessel, I mean, I actually worked with my husband. I work with now one of my best friends and we joined at the same time. So we were on that boat for 6 years together. And so that friendship, she was the chief stewardess and I was the bosun. So we kind of brought both of the teams together quite well, which is also very helpful. But yeah, I'd say the people, the travel is just, I mean, I know everyone says it, but it is like going to Antarctica. I'd never go there unless I was working on a super yacht. So it does give you a pathway to see and go to some incredible places. When you have the luck that you're in a really cool place, even if you don't have a day off, you might have, let's say, an hour just to go and walk around a really cool port that you've never been to before, or, go for a run somewhere that you've never explored before. Okay, maybe go to a beach bar with the crew, even better. But there's so much cool things that you can do that normal people in a 9 to 5 just don't have the chance to do. And I think actually when I was in yachting, I think I took it for granted a little bit. Now looking back on it, I think we had some incredible experiences and incredible places. And then the money. I know you shouldn't really talk about money, but
no,
it's
everyone's
tax-free.
going to ask. It's a career in the industry. Can you earn? Can you live on it?
Yeah, it's a great way to save. And if you have set out goals, if people want to buy a house or some people have to support their family or, you can do that very quickly and easily in yachting because you have no overheads. You don't pay rent. You have a toiletry cupboard that's fully stocked. You don't have any toiletries. You don't pay for any groceries or your meals are cooked by a chef. and yeah, you have absolutely nothing to worry about. So you can save very quickly, and I think to have that chance early in life to set you up for success, you know, that's also a major reason why I left London. I just thought there's no way that I'm going to be able to buy a house ever. I'm just about scraping by, you know, to live, let alone save any money. So yeah, it's a great way to save
Yeah, I
and
saw
set
you
you up.
nodding there, Gemma.
I agree. And I think it's such a good reminder too, because I think because I've been out the industry for quite a few years now, you almost take for granted the travel side of it as well. Because
Yeah,
I talk to friends locally. I live in the countryside in the UK and I love it. But I have local friends here and, you know, they get to do one trip a year where they might go somewhere in Europe. And then I think to myself, like, oh my gosh, I was so fortunate. And it was just part of our everyday life. I think it is give and take too. You are literally giving your life to this vessel. You're saying goodbye to everything that, you know, is needed from you on the shore side, and you are you know, anything that the boat needs, that's kind of your priority. But it's such a good reminder because I loved the travel side. Oh my gosh. We got to go, because I'm originally from Vancouver. So the boat actually spent time in Vancouver. And there is nothing like pulling into your home port on the vessel and you're there. And like my parents were on the dock, and it was just, that was so cool. And moments like that are very much, I think, lifelong memories for sure.
RYA courses and qualifications. From beginners to professionals, with more than 100 courses to choose from, there's something for everyone. Visit rya.org.uk to learn more.
And you mentioned like the two teams, and then you said there was an opportunity to bring the teams together. It feels like it's quite separate. How much is that about getting the right boat and the right leadership on the boat to have a cohesive group working together? Liberty, probably you mentioned it, and so like maybe you could answer.
I think it's super important in order for teams to work effectively. Like Gemma said previously, you're working in very close quarters. So when everything's going well, great. But when there's a tiny bit of a hiccup or disagreement, like, you just don't have space for it. Like it has to be squashed pretty early on because you just don't have the time or the space to deal with it. So I think it is really important, especially, you know, higher up, that you have a great connection and communication between the captain, the chief stewardess, the chief officer. Those three is, I would say, the most important, because then it has to filter down effectively. If it doesn't filter down effectively, then I don't think it's how you build a successful team. And I think in yachting, you don't really get it in a normal 9 to 5, but you can often have a few things that make it a bit more tricky, like egos, or, you know, people that really think that hierarchy is super important, and it is to a certain extent. But I just think that another thing to look for when you're looking to join a boat is the people, the crew. How long have they been there? You know, like maybe you should or shouldn't ask, but like, why did the previous person leave? Was it, how long were they here for? You want to get a real feel for the crew, because they're not just going to be your colleagues. They're going to be, okay, your boss, probably your best friend, your cabin buddy. There's so many different aspects of it that has to really come together for it to work. And when it does work, it's incredible. That's why I stayed on my last boat for 6 years. You know, we had an amazing crew, and at times it didn't even feel like work. I'd be pinching myself thinking, this is ridiculous. I'm actually getting paid for this. I'm hanging out with my best friends. I'm going diving with the guests. Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So the environment's really important. And is there like a male-female divide? I mean, you're two very accomplished females in the industry with careers, but the stereotype perception of the yachting industry is the females serve the food and polish stuff with cotton buds, and the guys lift heavy ropes and talk on walkie-talkies. So, you know, dispel the myth for me, please, or is that actually the reality?
So to blow your mind, we all use walkie-talkies. We'll start there. Liberty, you probably have a much better perspective on this, because I think you are quite a trailblazer in terms of being so public about being a female on deck, and yeah, sharing that online.
Yeah, I think when I joined 6 years ago or 7 years ago, I it wasn't a thing at all. You wouldn't see a female on deck. If you did, I'd literally grab the person next to me and be like, "Oh my goodness, there's a female deckhand over there, or there's a female engineer, or there's I didn't really see female captains." So from then to where we are now, I think there's been a massive shift in the right direction. And I've been very lucky in the experiences that I've had where I haven't been looked at as a female deckhand or a female bosun. I've just been a deckhand or a bosun, and I've been surrounded with people like captains and chief officers that have seen me not because of my sex, but because of who I am. But I know that's not the case on every boat. But I think it's definitely changing in the right direction. I think also, I mean, I don't know if you'll agree with this, but I think when you make it more of a thing, it is a thing. You know, like okay, some boats might have to specifically look for a female deckhand because of cabin arrangements, but I think when you make it more of a divide, then it is a divide, you know? So I don't see it at all as female or male, only if the boat has a requirement specifically because of cabin arrangements. But girls can 100% do both. And there's so many more chief officers, so many more captains that I'm seeing that I just get so stoked about because, yeah, girls rule.
Well, it's really powerful of that old adage of if you can see it, you can be it. And you're right that actually visibly seeing somebody doing the role,
Yeah,
you
100%.
realise it's suddenly possible.
Yeah, for sure.
On the flip side of that,
yeah, go ahead, Gemma.
I just wanted to say, some of our best senior students at our academy are males, and
Really?
I think some of the best butlers that you will find globally are males as well. And they are starting to join the yachting industry, which is incredible because it's elevating the level of service that interior teams are providing. But I think equally it's a conversation on both sides where I think sometimes people are a bit like, oh, there's a guy on the interior. Well, why the heck not? Like,
Yeah.
you know, they've got the talent, they've got the background. So I think it is also a conversation on both sides of not just kind of like deck and engineering, but also with the interior of keeping that door open for everybody, regardless of, their gender.
So Sam Ross, from beach instructor to Olympic medals, that's quite a transition and quite a career. Tell me how it first started. Were you always destined to go and work the waterfront, or did it come by inspiration, influence, or accident?
I always, I mean, when I say always, I'm pretty sure probably at the age of 4, I didn't want to, but yeah, I did always want to be a instructor, and that came from, like, my dad got me into the sport, so he got me into windsurfing, which had a fairly calamitous beginning. I think I dropped the mast on his head and split his head open, all that kind of stuff. But then he took me down to a centre in Cornwall where he had some friends, Jeff Gill, Rachel Med, running it down there. And then Rachel taught me to windsurf. And she was like one of these really, I was probably 14, 15. I remember meeting her and being like, "You're the most amazing person ever. I just want to be like you." So, and at the time, like, windsurfing was, I kind of liked it. It was all right. I was terrible, but to me, she was just this super inspirational person I want to be like. So, and I saw her as an instructor, so I kind of want to be an instructor before I really want to be a windsurfer, if that makes any sense. And then my ability and love for the sport then caught up with the wanting to be an instructor. So then I went off and did an instructor course at 18, and then thought I'd do a summer season in pool, and then I thought I'd do one more overseas, and then 10 years later I was still doing it. So just one more season, always one more season. But so I always wanted to be an instructor, and I really like the idea of doing overseas seasons, but it probably went on a little bit longer than planned.
But I can understand that. You're in the sunshine, you've got loads of people coming through. That that level of teaching grassroots or teaching people a sport that you're passionate about, what is the key ingredient that makes that work?
Enthusiasm, I think. Like if you I think it's one of those things where you like when you do an overseas season, it's really interesting because effectively you work 6 days on, 1 day off, but it's everyone's first week apart from you. So you might do an 8-month season, but every customer you have, it's their first week. So I think it's that challenge of the chance of it feeling like Groundhog Day are quite high because you might be teaching the same thing all day every day for the whole season. So if you're enthusiastic about it, it's great. It's really good. If you're not, it becomes pretty trying. So I think just being excited about people getting better, and we still have pretty range. We had people that were total beginners all the way through that have been trying to learn to carve jibe for 20 plus years. So you did still have a pretty large range within that and different groups, that kind of stuff. But I think, I think from instructor training and everything I've ever done, I think enthusiasm for the sport and teaching can paper over a lot of cracks in delivery. So as long as you're enthusiastic, it'll probably be okay.
We talk about instructing, we talk about training, we talk about coaching. To you, many people, those words are interchangeable. Training, I accept, we're teaching other people how to deliver, but what is your fundamental difference between being an instructor and being a coach?
It's tricky because if I was running a instructor course now, this would be a topic we'd cover.
Oh, don't give all your secrets away.
Yeah, that's it. But generally, instruction is led by the instructor. So how the learning process is going to happen, what we're going to do, where the information is coming from, all that stuff is coming from the source of the person doing delivery. Coaching, I'd say it's very much the other way around. So it's if you go for pure coaching, so if I look at when I coach Emma and Isla, very much actually it's coming from them, and I'm facilitating. So they're leading the practice. So I might talk with them, and if they don't know why they're doing it, there's no point in doing it. Whereas when you're an instructor, there's probably a moment when someone can just be told to do, and they don't yet need to understand why they're doing it, or they need to experience it, and then we're going to fill in the knowledge a little bit later. So it's kind of who's leading it. I'd almost go if you're a coach, it's led by let's call them a student. If you're an instructor, it's probably more led by the instructor. But then I think as an instructor, you very quickly go for here's a new thing that I'm going to show you because you've never seen it before, and you're going to have a go at it. And once you have a go at it, actually quite quickly we're going to move into a coaching bit. But now I'm going to move back into an instructing bit. It's got a new thing to show you. So you're kind of going through that loop all the time.
You're flip-flopping the whole time.
Yeah. Whereas a coach, if I'm coaching the girls, very rarely I go, right, girls, so I'm going to show you a fully foiling tack today because I can't do one, and you're both much better at them than I am. So and that's the weird thing. So it's much more led by them, and so you're not necessarily introducing something new, but you might introduce some, bring in some input, or go, where do you want the input to come from today? And then when you're doing the instructor training, again, it's a bit of both. You introduce a new concept, but you pretty quickly switch to coach, because you're not trying to create people that are like you. You're trying to create the best version of them that can deliver the curriculum. So lots of open questions. Yeah, lots of open questions. Yeah, I love an open question.
And I think, what you also need a certain level is people skills. I guess, that communication, all the soft skills, I'd say, like your hard skills are your actual ability to do the sport. But as you can say, I was a teacher, and they always used to say, if you can't do, teach. So it never surprises me when a coach says, oh, I'm no good at this, but they can do it really well because you're looking at the big picture. But it's the softer skills, the personal skills, how you communicate, all that. What do you think is, as the main skills that people need if they want to go into life as a water sports instructor?
I think all of it is relationships and empathy and understanding. And I think it comes back to adapting and flexing. But you're then dealing with, kids. Then, like, early adults, then people that are CEOs of large companies, groups of people out on hen dos, the army coming out on a massive trip. Do you mean so and the delivery, the information you're delivering to all those people is the same, but how you deliver it and how you deal with those people is quite different. And I think the ability to mirror, to adapt, to flex a bit, rather than being, this is how I deliver it and this is how I do it. So, and at the moment I coach 2 women. So I coach Emma Wilson, Isla Watson, and they're different people, and it's like they're both incredibly driven, high performance people that are outstanding in their field, but they're really different. So you're trying to find a way of, giving each of them what you think they need, and form a relationship with both of them. So I think being able to form relationships with people, but being able to flex yourself in terms of your delivery style or how you do things to make that work, is really important. So if you could survive a dinner conversation with anyone, you're probably in the right place.
That's a really good kind of litmus test. Surviving a dinner conversation. I like that one.
Yeah.
And with that, you have a role as a mentor as well in your training and development of coaches and instructors. Is it quite often those that have had the knock or the bump in the road that react most to the mentorship that you can offer because you've lived it and done it, and they need that for themselves?
It's really interesting where you see people that when they get the knock, how they react. And I would, desirable speed bumps, probably the best way of describing it. In this probably is at the athlete level as well, and at the instructor training level. If you're not sure on someone, you might give them a very actionable speed bump that they can achieve. And it's probably not a particularly hard one, but like, we're going to put a small barrier in the way here and see how they deal with it. And it's interesting how you kind of, you give someone that challenge and you offer them the opportunity, and some will go, okay, and they might be annoyed about it, but they'll push through, and and this is the kind of funny thing, they'll prove you wrong. But you're like, actually, you're proving me right. So this is really
they
good.
secretly wanted that.
Yes, that's what I really wanted you to do. And then afterwards, they're like, actually, that was really good for me. I kind of get it, and you hold their hand through that process, give them support. And others will go, no, I'm just walk away. And you're like, and normally the challenge you're putting in front of someone is small. It's really, it's not we're going to help you through this. Like, we're going to give you this challenge. We're going to give you all the tools you need to complete it. We're going to give you a time frame. We're going to give you, we're going to plan it out for you. This is not I need to go and learn a load of new things. I'm going to translate this. But it's amazing how people then walk away. And it's a real sad one when you see that, because you're like, okay, unfortunately, I probably was right. But it's amazing those people that overcome that and get it. You're like, that person really wanted that. And if they've really, really wanted that, then as a instructor or a trainer, or whatever it happens to be, they're probably the absolute perfect person to be in this, because the next person they work with that's really struggling with something, they're going to put in the time and the effort to get them through it. So I think those people that get past that speed bump, they're normally some of the best trainers, best instructors. They're the ones that don't rely on, I hate the word, but talent to get them through it. It's the hard work, it's the effort that gets them there.
Yeah, and when we go looking at Olympic campaigns, I mean, Emma Wilson's 2024 Paris Olympics was probably the most heartfelt, jaw-dropping experience any of us have witnessed, and you were there living it with her. A bronze medal, but complete domination throughout, and by the format came to the medal race. I mean, talking the speed bumps and being resilient, like, how on earth did you both deal with that?
We, Emma was during that whole campaign, especially the last year or so, once Emma had been selected and going through, she was incredibly kind of the way she went about a campaign, because she very much talked about it being like our campaign, which, you know, from a coaching point of view is really nice, and we lived and breathed it and that kind of stuff. And you've never seen someone work so hard. Like it's a quite insane amount of work and desire and passion go into it, and it's amazing to be part of that. And it was, you know, I mean, the week of the games, I think it's still probably the best ever series someone's put together at an Olympics. Like it just, insanely good. And you know, the moment after the medal race where it didn't pan out how we wanted it to, it was that really difficult thing for me, because I think the person in me is just really, you know, I've got this athlete, and I know how much they put into it. I know how much they deserve it, and I know how the format has kind of done them dirty, really. And I think what made it particularly difficult was you had in the lasers Marek being celebrated as the greatest Olympic sailor of all time with a day to go. And you're like, Emma kind of would have won this with 2 days to go. Do you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
and I think that's really difficult when you get this, like, you know, world sailing and celebrating people with a day to go in one stage, and then we're using this format on the other side. So that was difficult for me to rectify. And I've got this person, I know how hard they've worked, how much passion I've put into it, and I just really feel for them. So the human in me is just, I just want to be there for them, support them. The coach in me is just incredibly proud of how she's done it. And I think that's, you know, that's the very difficult bit of, like, yeah, we're kind of gutted, but at the same time, it's just amazing. You know, and I think the coach in me looks at you step back and you look at the whole thing. There's 3 years ago, Emma stepped off an RSX, you know, a totally different type of sport, weighing, you know, 50-something kilos, soaking wet, you know, that kind of stuff. And we still have a video that we laugh about of Emma's first ever port start at IQ, where she basically pretty much crashed into the rib that I'm sat in. And we didn't know each other either as well. Do you mean, like, so she's come from this stage of, she was, went to the games, you know, with her coach, Barry. They've been working together for years since she's a kid, coming to IQ, suddenly into a squad of 9 people, like, that, you know, who have all been learning sport for 6 months to a year already. Like, and then converted over. It's this kind of weird, insane journey. And then there's me, a water sports instructor from Greece and Turkey, suddenly coaching her. You're like, the story's a bit weird and wild. So I think that moment, I'm so proud of her and how she's done it. And then obviously the human side of me is distraught for her because of how she feels. And I don't know. It's, you know, it was really tricky. Like, tried to, you know, lots of people around her, you know, lots of people giving her support, but actually, at the end of the day, you know, her picking herself back up, that is just, you know, and I don't think she might say it's pure bloody minded determination. Do you mean? And that's the bit you can't coach or teach. Do you mean, like, it is that, like, there's a bit in there which is just like, I'm gonna do this again. So she only had a little bit of time off, and then came back, and then this year's been pretty good, really. World champion.
I know, I was going to say redemption, gold medal, world championships.
Yeah.
I mean, for both of you, that was like, you know, getting back on the horse and delivering, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we had three or four moments this year, and it was, we had an event at the start of the year in Lanzarote, and we had a new sail this year, so we had a new 7.3. No one used it, so we had an event in Lanzarote, and Emma won that. Isla came third. It was a really cool event for the Brits, and Emma won so did the medal race, won it first go, and you think that's like, I mean, you know, that in itself is an emotional moment of like, right, last time I did one of these was the games.
Yeah.
Here we go. And smashed it. And it was like, okay, there you go. There's proof, you know, you can do this. Then went to Palma, and then Palma, big regatta, lots of people, that kind of stuff. I think what was really cool in Palma was Emma did the same again. So it's, you know, it's not a fluke, dominated it. And then she won the overall trophy for Palma. So they kind of like, the best point scorer across the whole thing. So there was a lot of that going into it.
And on that, with 2 successes and then going into the World Champs with success,
Yeah.
did you approach the campaign differently as the coach from the Olympic campaign, having learnt from 2024, or were you two both on the same page doing what you do?
No, I think everything's perspective. Like it's really difficult. So it's that thing of it's, I suppose the challenge for both of us and that stuff is the thing you're trying to win is the most important thing in the world, but at the same time, try to remember it's maybe not the only thing in the world. It's a real difficult balance. Do you mean like it's got to be the most important thing, but maybe it's not the only thing? But I think you have to have gone through all of it to realise that, and it's probably much easier for me at 42, being through all the ups and downs of my life, to have that bit of perspective. And I think Emma's still very young, but 2 Olympics in and all this kind of stuff, and I think she, picking up all those bits and pieces and the ups and downs and that kind of stuff. So I think what Emma's really good at is, she loves windsurfing. Like, she loves winning, but she loves windsurfing. So I think she'll always try and come back to the, why am I doing it? Why am I doing it? Why am I doing it? I'm doing it because I love this sport. And yes, I want to win, but I'm doing it because I love this sport, and just try and not lose sight of that. And I suppose my job is just trying to maintain that perspective all the time. And try and maintain perspective. It's her versus her, not her versus everyone else.
I think that's fair play to the pair of you, because she's an inspirational role model that's attracting others into the sport. So your depth of talent is growing, which is great because they're doing it together then.
Yeah, no, that's it. And so the approach to the Worlds was try and enjoy it. Try and enjoy Aarhus when you might get rained on, you might not, and the wind comes from all the directions. But I think it's a really interesting one. That's the first week where probably haven't been in the top 3 on day 1 or day 2. So and actually that kind of trust the process really helped in that week. So you think Emma wasn't in yellow until the day before the medal race. And I think just trusting in what you're doing in your process all the way through was really important that week. It's interesting, after the first day, we actually thought we'd served really well on the first day, but sat in 12th. And people were like, oh, tough day, eh? We were like, no, I think it was actually quite good. We didn't lose it. That we're here. We're only, we're not miles away, but it's a really interesting one, how the perception of everyone else of, like, if you're not banging out streams of bullets, they think it's all going wrong. Whereas you're like, actually, we did what we said we were going to do today. So that's great. So well done us.
It's interesting because from the outside perspective, it's all results for us. We look and go, oh, they're not on top. But actually, you guys are doing a process that we're not privy to. So, as you say, trusting the process. But it's interesting, British Sailing and the coaching team that's around, the instructors, you all have a process that's tried and tested and delivers. What's the secret? What's your secret magic that you're giving the coaches there and the men, in your mentoring role?
Well, I mean, when it comes to the mentoring of these coaches, that's very much not me. That's I think the beauty is, you walk in, like when I think I went to the games, or even before the games, suddenly walk into a room and you've got Barry, who's done more Olympics than, I'm pretty sure he might have been at the first ever one. Do you know what I mean? You've got someone like Barry who's been there, done all of it, had great success, had difficult times, all that kind of stuff. But then you also walk into a room and it's like, all right, there's Ian Percy sat there, and there's you've got everyone from Ben Rhodes, Steve Morrison, talking to people like Penny Clark. There's so many people who've got so much experience, but such a variety of experience, that you get a bit of imposter syndrome. But they're all really nice at it. Do you mean it's like a Chris Cowes or a Mark Russell? All those people will just come and chat to you about things. So you've got people experienced in their first games, but you've got people that have been to loads, and they're all really, really free with their advice, but they're also not trying to shove it down your throat. Like, people are supportive, and I think the best bit about the British sailing team is that it is a team, and whether that's the physios, the physiologist, S&C, head of sports science, the technical team, like, they are a team. And when it gets towards games time, it kind of doesn't really matter what your job is. It's like you're a team. So I'm pretty sure everyone at some point in that period is operating way outside of their job description, because they're just trying to get the thing over the line, and they're, as a coach, you're just really well supported. And then outside that time, it's still a team. And I think it's that beauty of so MRI. Like, we obviously spend the most amount of time together, but there's other people that are interacting with that group all the time, individually or as a whole and as a group. So I think being able to draw on that wider support, that's probably the key bit. And I think that's probably where because everyone's not just brought in to do a few days, but people are kind of in the role for a little bit longer. There's people you can speak to quite a lot, which is nice.
Yeah, and
so
that's important, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's really really important.
And from your experience seeing people go through the system, one of the things that the RIA training does is give you the stepping stones. So there's tangible kind of building blocks to build a career as water sports staff, or going into coaching. How important is that, and how relevant do you think it is today? Can you just go out because you're good?
As a coach or as a sailor, or
Well, anything, any of it really. I think people get, oh, it's all just bureaucracy, but actually they are the building blocks. Or do you just think raw talent can do it and you don't need to worry?
I think the system we have is world class. It does. We're still, good games or bad games, we're still getting medals. Do you mean, we're still getting medals, and and if we're not getting medals, we're very close to medals. So we're, it's doing the right things. I think the challenge I have is almost and I think we're getting much better at this as a country, but linear progression, I think, is sometimes the challenge. So people, like, we've got this fantastic pathway that offers all these opportunities all the way through, but I think sometimes the challenge someone might be is they go, right, I'm going to start in an oppie, I'm going to go to a topper, and from a topper I'm going to go to a laser, and then I'm a laser sailor now, so I'm just going to be in my laser all the way, and then if I don't make it, I will go and work in the city. Give me a whatever happens to be. Whereas actually, okay, you're starting your oppie, great, and then, why don't you learn to a bit of windsurfing or kite surfing or something at the same time, and then okay, maybe you do your topper, or you maybe do a little bit in a laser, but then why not jump in a double hander or go keelboat sailing, or because there are all these opportunities. So I think if you look at some of who are the people that are the best sailors, they probably have the most varied. They're the generalists. Who are the people with the longest careers? And I'm sat here saying I'm the person that only qualified as a windsurfing instructor and stuck with that for years and years and years and years and years. And I still can't sail a dinghy. But those that can't teach, right? So it's fine. So I can say what I would do. And I think when I look at some of the people coming through, actually, yes, your passion might be the one thing that's great, but try and do the other stuff as well. And you never know, that might lead to an opportunity somewhere else. And I think that's, the pathway is really good at building all these opportunities. And I think in this conversation we had with parents and stuff in the past and different people is, okay, let's say I've come to the end of where I'm going to get to in the pathway with windsurfing. And they're like, well, what's next? You're like, well, what's next is, you could, if you want to just stay windsurfing, you become a windsurfing instructor. Or you could go and do this type of competitive windsurfing. Or you could go to just windsurfing for fun, because that's all I ever did all my life. And by the way, it's pretty awesome. It's just this great thing. Or actually, if you did want to keep competing, if you tried winging, have you had a go at kite surfing? Have you jumped in a boat? There's all these opportunities. So it's not this effing shouldn't be a precipice. It should be, you've got to this stage. Now, these are all the different roads that are open to you. And I know, so Ollie Woodcock's now the youth racing manager. He's really good at trying to signpost all those different things. But I think sometimes we come in with the mindset of, I start on this thing, so that's the linear progression. Whereas we all know in any career, progression is not linear. Like it's ups and it's downs, and it's very Jeremy Beremy. So I think trying to see that in sailing of like what are the different opportunities, or where does someone start? I'm pretty sure in offshore sailing, you don't start offshore sailing in an offshore boat. You'd probably start in the dinghy.
Don't start going around the world first thing.
No, that's it, isn't it? You're like, today I'm going to go from Southampton to that. I'm just slowly going to build up my miles as I go. I mean, that's not the route into it. And I think sometimes in Olympic sailing, we've probably shown the same attitude. We should go. Look at John Gibson. It's a great example. How many different classes did he sail until he, medalled in his NACRA with Anna? It's amazing. All those different classes and all that kind of stuff. Or you look at, the kite team. Like they all came from sailing and kiting and that kind of stuff into kiting. And Ellie obviously had incredible success, but the other girls did incredibly well. But now 2 of them are back in the 49 in an FX. It's epic. It's still all the same things. And you can move in those different parts and stuff.
Well, Sam, I just want to say thank you for your time. It's enlightening, and I'm sure you'll be there at the Olympics and your medal colour's going to change.
Yeah,
so good luck.
Thank you. Thanks, Dee.
Learning to sail or sharpening your skills? The RYA shop has everything you need, from handbooks and training guides to the latest racing rules of sailing, plus ebooks and audiobooks you can take anywhere. Visit rya.org.uk/shop and set course for your next adventure.